When an airplane falls out of the sky, everybody stops. Families cry, friends grieve, journalists race to the scene. And all of us turn to the news. Airplane crashes capture an outsized share of attention. Even though they represent a small fraction of transportation-related crashes, their rarity and drama hold a steel grip on our hearts and minds. But what if we could understand the systemic issues that cause certain airplane crashes?
Yeah.
The airline industry has a strict process for evaluating accidents to prevent future ones. Immediately after a crash, a team of investigators observes the aircraft, studies the scene, and replays the pre-crash commentary from the cockpit, because Boeing's executive team has lowered its engineering standards. This is more than a story about two airplane crashes. It's a story about an iconic American giant that lost its way because of mergers, risk aversion, and excessive outsourcing. Why did Boeing lower its engineering standards? To lower costs and increase efficiency. The goal was to save money. Why does Boeing save money at the expense of human lives? Because Boeing purchased McDonnell Douglas in 1997 and absorbed its ultra-corporate culture with relatively low engineering standards. In the battle between finance and engineering, the money men walked away with the boxing belt. Slowly, the company lost its culture of engineering excellence and adopted one of financialization and cost reduction through outsourcing. 8. If you've flown on a commercial jet with more than 150 seats, you can bet it was made by one of these two companies. They have near equal share in the market for single-aisle jets, which Airbus values at $3.5 trillion over the next 20 years. To illustrate the dangers of outsourcing, Smith points to the DC-10 aircraft, where the subcontractors made all the profits while the McDonnell Douglas absorbed the excess costs. In the aircraft industry, outsourcing commercial aircraft is likely to backfire. Military aircraft are a major exception because congressional support is easier to secure when many states are involved. To avoid blame, higher-ups and employees reject bold visions and adopt a status quo bias. Boeing adopted McDonnell Douglas's culture of risk aversion and cost-cutting. By the time they reach the end of the grant approval process, the ideas are watered down to the point of triviality. But like the Wright brothers, engineers across the world saw an opportunity for progress. But the 737 MAX disaster was caused by a lack of engineering excellence. Engineers couldn't solve this problem because Boeing had systematically dismantled its engineering culture. Now it needs to rebuild it. One engineer named Mike Barman worked on the 737 MAX simulator and noticed that pilots had trouble controlling the aircraft. We should make progress sexy again. On several occasions, the plane pitched dangerously upwards. When he reported the issue to his manager suggested that he might be making a mistake. After all, the FAA had already signed off on the jet, so it seemed unlikely that the new plane was dangerous to fly. Nonetheless, Berryman continued to voice his concerns. His boss consistently ignored him. Then the second crash happened, and Boeing engineers understood how the tragedy could have been avoided. A simple software update could have saved 346 lives. Engineers are naturally curious. I hope you know this. After all, engineers make up the largest group of people who read my newsletter. But when something doesn't seem right, they feel compelled to tear things apart and figure out why. Ironically, the kinds of projects you can receive a grant for are probably too conventional. Transformative change is usually unpopular. But when you apply for a grant, the need to adapt to social conventions make it difficult to pursue paradigm-shifting work. Innovation slows, and like the Boeing 737, necessary changes aren't made. Instead of pursuing aggressive product development, Boeing ran the business for cash. From 2005 to 2017, the number of major airlines in America dropped from 9 to 4. Unlike the market for flights between Chicago and San Francisco, the market for airplanes is global. Even though Boeing and Airbus fight for market share, they don't want the duopoly to end. As one Reuters article said, Airbus is wary of exploiting Boeing's 737 MAX turmoil. Airbus isn't pouncing on Boeing's 737 MAX misery. Pending any major safety issues, both businesses are safe from existential threats. Any big changes, such as a price war or a radical new jet, could destabilize the industry. But the shares of both aircraft manufacturers have skyrocketed over the past decade. And yet, during that time, inflation-adjusted prices fell, and the total number of miles flown in the United States increased. Airline tickets for the 5 American major carriers: Delta, United American Alaska, Southwest began to be pushed downwards because of competition from a litany of low-cost carriers. Moreover, in individual city markets, airline concentration is not increasing. Competition among airlines is still relatively intense. By moving its headquarters from Seattle to Chicago, Boeing ensured the CEO would sit more than 2,000 miles away from the engineers who cut the wires and tightened the screws. To this day, industry insiders still joke, McDonnell Douglas bought Boeing with Boeing's money. By consolidating big airplane manufacturers into even bigger ones, those mergers have reduced industry competition. For example, the 747 took its first flight just 930 days after Boeing decided to start the program. In the case of Boeing, power has shifted from build-hungry engineers to blue-suit executives. As recently as 2001, journalists wrote, Boeing has always been less a business than an association of engineers devoted to building amazing flying machines. Boeing's culture has lost its progress-hungry mindset. Today's executives have Charles Lindbergh's pioneering spirit or the Wright brothers' hacker mentality. Duopoly's slow innovation. Any economist will tell you competition is the spark that propels innovation. When there is no market competition, the rate of innovation declines. If you need further proof, look at the regulated utility companies that power the gas, energy, and internet for your home. And year after year, companies like Verizon and PG&E have the lowest customer satisfaction rates of any sector in the economy. Since the acquisition, the company hasn't innovated as fast as it once did. In lieu of actual innovation, the company cut corners to maintain growth rates. That's exactly what happened with two recent Boeing 737 MAX crashes, which led to the deaths of 346 total people. The first crash happened in October 2018, when Lion Air Flight 610 crashed 13 minutes after takeoff and killed all 189 people on board. Then in March 2019, Ethiopian Airlines Flight 302 crashed and ended another 157 lives. 3 days after the second crash, the United States government grounded all Boeing 737 MAX airplanes. As I write this, the airplane is still barred from flying in every country. As I learned more about those two crashes, I realized the media wasn't telling the full story. This essay is my attempt to do justice to those tragedies and explain why the 737 MAX crashed. Why did the 737 MAX crash? Because of a software failure. Why did the software failure? Why did Boeing buy McDonnell Douglas? Because the airplane manufacturing industry is consolidating, and Boeing is pursuing profit at the expense of human lives. So fasten your seatbelts, put your seat in the upright position, and prepare for takeoff. Mergers. The airplane industry has been shaped by a series of recent mergers. Until it acquired McDonnell Douglas in 1997, Boeing had a reputation for speed and innovation. Boeing critics say the company adopted excessive outsourcing practices after the 1997 McDonnell Douglas merger. In 2005, Boeing hired its first CEO without aircraft engineering experience. For all the chatter about the problems with industry concentration, nobody talks about the Boeing or bust duopoly. Here I want to draw a line between two parts of the airline industry, airlines and airplane manufacturers. But in the market for purchasing airplanes, Boeing is the only major American manufacturer. Those mergers had a dangerous side effect: risk aversion. Risk aversion. In a culture of risk aversion, people hesitate to make necessary but impactful decisions, which reorient the company. Similarly, grant approvals for scientists have to pass through layers of approval. On September 29, 2018, Lion Air Flight 610 departed Bali and crashed just 13 minutes later. Everyone mourned the loss of 189 people. For example, as soon as the New York Times published an article on the Lion Air crash, Boeing engineers went to work. When we think of Boeing, we often think of a technological powerhouse that builds some of the most advanced machines on Earth. We rebuild a great engineering culture. We must invest in the basic principles that made Boeing so special in the first place. Thank you for watching. See you in the next one.